Let's touch on this briefly right here. Why is Haile Selassie the first Metaf Kedus? Why is the authorized 1961 Bible in Royal Amharic, why is it superior to these other so-called versions, or really perversions of the Word of God first and foremostly, and then also perversion of the Amharic language and the sense of it, and how many Ethiopian Christians who may be Pente and Wengelawit, like Pentecostal and evangelical, although they think they're escaping from, you know, the clergy of the Ethiopian Orthodoxy, the Orthodoxy on one hand, you understand, which has kept them in the box. They're almost like the old saying, from the pot to the fire, out of the pot, out of the pan to the fire and everything. We're going to look at Psalm 91 briefly right here and compare Psalm 91 from the Metaf Kedus, the authorized 1961 Bible, you understand, Amharic Bible, authorized of His Imperial Majesty, and we're going to compare it to the popular but very wrongly and badly translated, and it's put out by the Bible Society of Ethiopia, which formerly was the Barhanana Salam, you understand, and the Bible Society of His Imperial Majesty, what they call the Addis Targum. And I want to warn the Ethiopianos and the self-named Habashas, Abisho Sawoch, or Habashas, you understand, so-called Ethiopian, that this new Kalil or Kalel Bala Marinya Yete Targum of the Metaf Kedus is full of popish and papal errors. You remember, the Italians, the fascists, invaded Ethiopia physically, you understand, back in 1936. Now what we are witnessing is a spiritual invasion, which is far worse, because most people don't even perceive it. So let's touch on Psalm 91. Let's compare it both in the Royal Amharic 1961 authorized translation of the King of Kings, and then we're going to compare it with this 1988 translation of the Amharic Bible, which is in the English. In the English, it's really the New World Translation. You understand? It's like the NIV in a sense in the Amharic, going against the HIM, His Imperial Majesty's authorized translation of the Bible. And why the Metaf Kedus of His Imperial Majesty's Bible, you understand, the Metaf Kedus of His Imperial Majesty in the Royal Amharic is that pure language from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, which Zephaniah chapter 3 verses 9 and 10 speaks about. And then we have also the Tehillim in the Hebrew from 1945, the commentary by Reverend Cohen, which is the Hebrew. So we can look at the Masoretic Hebrew and compare it. Let's begin with verse 1. First of all, Psalm 91 is Mezmor Zetana and in the brackets and parentheses, that equals what the Hebrew. So the Hebrew is the basis, the good translation, or the proper Hebrew, is the basis of the Amarinya. It agrees with it, in other words. But now in the 88 version that many of you probably have, which is called the Addis Targum, it's called Mi'raf. That's the first error right there. Instead of calling Mezmor Zetana, Psalm 90, or Zetana Anbek Infuist in parentheses, they basically call it chapter Mi'raf 91. This is Mezmor Dawit, you understand? But instead of calling it Mezmor Dawit, they changed the title of it from 7 seals. They changed it to 8 and call it Metaf Mezmor. It's not Metaf Mezmor, it is Mezmor Dawit. So we see a lot of errors in this 1988, what they call the Good News Bible, that was translated from the English into Amharic. It's really a Pope Bible, it's a Jesuit Bible, and everything like that. And the majority of Ethiopians who are Pente and Wengelawi, they're reading this. We're going to prove to you the errors just in a couple of verses. Just deal with a couple of verses. We just touched on the title of the book. They translated it from, or changed it from Mezmur Dawit to Metzhaf Mezmur. In other words, from the Psalms of David to the book of Psalms. You understand? And they translated it from Mezmur Zetna An to Mi'raf, to chapter 91. And there's a subscription which is not in the Hebrew and it's not in the Royal Amharic, where it says Exyabihirat Abakiyachno, that Exyabihirat Yahweh is our protector. You understand? Or our advocate, in a sense, our protector, Abakiyachin. You understand? Instead of having the proper subscription, which is Ye Dawit, Ye Miskana, Mezmur, you understand, which is of David, a psalm of praise, they have Exhibit Bakiyachino. But let's get into the verse. First, we'll begin with the Metaf Kedus of Negus and Neges. The first verse says, Belu'ul Matagiya Yeminor, Hulun Bemichel Amlak Tilawist Yadaral. Period. Full stop. In this 88 Popish Amharic Bible, it says, Mataleya Bemefeleg what Exyabihir Yemikarib Hulunya Yemichalawin Amlaka Metagiya Yemyadarig. Then it has a comma. When we study and check the Hebrew has a full stop, and the translation usually should read, O thou that dwellest in the covert of the Most High, and abidest in the shadow of the Almighty. Now we know the psalm is security in God. This psalm is a very important psalm, and many often translate or chant this psalm for protection. Psalm 91. And we want to prove in a couple of verses why the new Amharic so-called translation of the Pope is an inferior one, and you'll need to pick up again the Metzaf Kedus of Kedamawi Haile Selassie and get out of your rebellion to the King of Kings. Psalm 91, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Period. Full stop. All right? Now let's look at this Popish translation for a moment. First of all, Lu'ul is taken out. Lu'ul is the root of El Elyon, and El Elyon, you understand, or Elyon means Most High. Lu'ul Elyon. Elyon is the Hebrew, and the Ethiopic is Lu'ul, and it means Most High. Most High has been stripped out of the Popish New Translation, the so-called Adis Targum, 1988 Amharic Bible. Look in the front of the Bible, because many people say they have the Metaf Kedus of its Imperial Majesty, but you don't have the 1961-62. You have the 1988, which is the Good News Bible that has been translated from English into Amharic and does not have Most High. It says the Mataleya Bemafeleg what Exyabihir Yemikarib Hulun Yemichalawin Amlakt Mategiya Yemiyadarig, comma. You understand? And when you go through this word by word, you'll find there's a whole different sense. Nothing is there about Mefeleg in the original, not even in the Hebrew. And they will boast that this 88 Bible is more perfect. It was translated directly from the Hebrew, and they will say, well, his Imperial Majesty Bible is not as good. But yet when we study his Imperial Majesty Bible side by side with the Masoretics, it's as good, and in some ways it's actually better. You understand? Let's go to verse 2 for a moment, because we're in a time frame, right? It says in verse 2, in the Amharic, it says, Exyabiherin ante metamanyayin elawalo amlakin na mesheshegiyayin no. Right? And the translation, the English should read, I will say of the Lord, actually more correctly, I will say to Yahweh, Ante, that you are my refuge and my fortress, my God. You understand? In him, you understand? In him I will trust. In him I will trust. But that's not what's here in the 1988 Popish Amharic Bible. Instead it says Exyabiherin ante mekatayena. In other words, they take out metamenyaye. They take out metamenyaye, which means my confidence, my trust. the one who I trust, the one who I have fidelis with, the one who I'm faithful, metamanyaye ne, has been taken out in favor of mekataye, which is a more military term. You understand? Instead of a more trustful term. It's like taking out the word semper fi. It's like taking out the word. Imagine if you take out the word semper fi out of the army. You'll have people who are fighting but not with fidelis, with fidelity. So they took out the word metamanyaye and they put in the word mekataye na metiyaye ne. Then they go on to say antam la kesalahone be'ante taminalo yilawal. Now, very important about this verse right here, if you understand the Royal Amharic, it says illawalo. I will say to Yahweh in the second verse of Psalm 91,